Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Let's start off with a story where cultural shock, family dynamics, and some surprise DNA results led to a whole new perspective. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. How my father-in-law learned about his family heritage the hard way. When I started dating my wife, we've been married 24 years, I'd been living in the USA on an H-1B visa for a few years. It was truly love at first sight. We knew from day one we were perfect for each other. She was a Southern Baptist from the Deep South. Me, tall blonde, all-American look, but not American. Her, beautiful Southern blonde. After dating for a few months, she decided that the time was right to introduce me to her parents. She tried warning me about safe topics to discuss, golf, college football, etc., and some topics to avoid, religion, politics, the big ones. I was nervous, as you might expect. Well, her parents kept the wheels on pretty well our first meeting, but as we were watching a college football game, her father let slip a "look at that N-bomb run." I was floored. I'd never heard that language out of my wife, and I went from excited about our future to, what in the hell have I gotten into? Because of the large amount of alcohol involved with that event, I waited until the next morning to bring it up with my wife. She said that yes, her father was very racist. She took great pains assuring me she was not, and thus we were able to stay together, but I had to endure her parents for holidays and events. I finally get the courage to ask her to marry me. And if you're Southern, you know that you have to ask the father for permission before you can ask the daughter. Well, I called to schedule a time to talk to him, but he's very cagey and seems to know what's going on. I'm busy, I can't meet. He comes up with every reason in the world to not meet with me. Finally, I just blurt out, listen, I'm trying to do the right thing and ask for your daughter's hand in marriage because that's important to her. However, if you keep making this difficult, I'll just skip you and ask her directly. Well, that just set the old man off. She won't say yes, you aren't American. I bet you're just marrying her to get a green card. Isn't that how you foreigners do this? I let my inner smart butt out after this one and let him know that there are far easier ways to get green cards than marrying into his family. He responded, fine, ask her, but she isn't marrying a foreigner. Spoiler, she did, we are. Many instances of issues over the last 20-some years with her family and my foreignness. About 4 years ago, I decided that I wanted to get our DNA tested. I've always been curious, and we all have our family stories about where we came from, so I pulled the trigger for my wife and I and both kids, as well as my parents. You need a different email for each submission back then, so I had my wife's info sent directly to her. I used my alt emails for both kids and my main one for me. The results came back, and I immediately go to mine. Scandinavian, English, Irish, Scottish. I'm literally glow-in-the-dark white. One of my children, the oldest, matches my heritage pretty closely. My other, while still a genetic match as child, for all you Reddit she's cheating people, shows some Congo DNA. Like 2% if I remember correctly. This did make me curious, so I asked my wife to see her report. I don't have it. Okay, let's give it a few days. Maybe yours is last. 3 weeks later, she was too busy to check, but didn't think she had it. My parents had theirs, my kids and I had ours. So I sat her down and said, I know you have the results, and I'm curious if you have Congo DNA like my youngest. Her shoulders slumped, she started to tear up and said, I do have the results. I'm 8% Congo. This is gonna kill my dad. Well, 20 years of backhanded comments about me being foreign and all his crap. Well, I had a plan. Over the next couple of months, we talked about this back and forth, and she realized that she shouldn't be protecting this man. He needed to face the truth, and maybe, just maybe, it may make him a little more tolerant. So I shared the results with my youngest, who was quite proud of the results and shared that with people proudly. Fast forward to our next visit with the in-laws. We were watching college football again, and my father-in-law made another comment about blacks because he tried hard not to say the N-bomb in front of my children. My youngest said, I'm 2% black. My father-in-law launched like a rocket out of his chair. No, you aren't. You're white and should be proud of that. My son, I'm 2% Congolese and proud of that. My father-in-law, you are not. Who told you to say that? My son, my dad. My father-in-law then looks at me and says, why are you teaching him to say this? He's white. Me. Funny you should mention that. I happen to have our genetic profiles here with me. Pulls out the full color printouts. Me. Funny thing about genetics, here are my results as well as my parents. Here are my kids' results. Here's your daughter's results. The question I have is, does the Congo DNA come from your side of the family or your wife's? I'm more than happy to buy a test to help you explore your rich history. My father-in-law, this is bullcrap, science mumbo-jumbo, ain't no way. Me. Actually, it's very accurate and only getting more accurate as more people share. Come on, let me get a test for you and your wife. My father-in-law, over my dead body. Ironically, that was the day the foreigner comment stopped. Never again was it pointed out I was from another country, nor were my children mixed. My father-in-law learned a hard lesson that day, and it was by far the best money I've ever spent. Still hates me, but I shifted the power dynamic. Literally, glow-in-the-dark white is officially my new favorite ethnic description. And our second story. Sorry to bulldoze you, but yes, we are closed. For context, I work at a small bake shop. Tuesday through Friday, we close at 6, and on Saturday, we close at 5. Friday and Saturday can be hectic, which makes closing on time a little more difficult. Our hours are on Google Maps, our website, and also right on our front door. That doesn't stop people from seeing the close sign, lowered blinds, pulling on a locked handle, knocking on the window, and getting me to poke my head out just to ask me, "Are you closed?" I'm not sure what else people need, but it happens more often than not. I was working a Saturday shift with my newest coworker, who's quite young but doing a great job. This day, 2 customers came in the door right at 4:59 as I was helping someone else, finally finishing that up around 5:08, already getting a late start closing. Naturally, it ended up being a day where the till situation was a nightmare and my poor coworker couldn't even start dishes until basically closing time. Well, we just had to power through so we could get on with our lives, figure everything out, finish wiping up, chuck the trash bags just outside the front door, and it was time to put in the security code and lock up. We're scheduled until 5:30, and it was 5:35-ish. Not too bad. Except, of course, the security system decided to be difficult too, just for fun. So I take over at the pin pad and fiddle around with it for a bit until it finally decided to work properly. Now, once the code is put in, we have a limited time window to exit the store and close the door, or the security system freaks out. Me being dumb, I then realized that while my coworker was at the door, only I had the key to lock up. Cut to me carefully sprinting across the mopped floor to the front door to make it out in time when, just like a Sims character, there was a customer standing right outside the door, appearing from nowhere, talking to my flustered coworker. He barely had the time to say, "Oh, so you're closed?" before I came leaping at the door like an Olympic hurdler, pushing past them both and throwing the door closed, while muttering some gibberish about the timer. I did feel bad having almost bulldozed both of them, and I did then calm down a bit and explain that we close at 5 on Saturdays. He'd assumed we closed at 6. He was understanding. We all went our separate ways. Case closed. Afterwards, I thought to myself again, close sign, lowered blinds, trash bag sitting outside, workers clearly exiting, store hours on the door. You were trying to enter. Please, sir, what more can we do? At this point, I give up. I also later apologized to my coworker for flying through the door like a startled gazelle, and we had a good laugh. It wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if people who show up at the last minute to a bakery are hoping to snag some deals from the basket of doom, i.e. wherever you put the stuff that you discount deeply because you're just going to throw it out anyway, if it even exists at that company's stores. And our last story. Purchased a home with shared garage, neighbor is claiming it's theirs. I recently bought a rundown property that needed some serious work, but I was excited to tackle the project. When I first toured the place, I assumed the fence lines marked the property boundaries, which seemed to be the case for the most part. There was just one thing that I didn't give much thought to at the time: the garage. It's connected to the neighbor's garage, and in my area, it's not uncommon to have shared garages, so I figured it was all part of the deal. After the sale closed and I moved in, I had a chat with a neighbor who turned out to be the seller's daughter. That's when things took a turn. She told me that the garage wasn't mine. It was supposedly part of their home and hadn't been included in the sale. At that point, I wasn't sure what to think, so I decided to order a property survey to get things straightened out. When the survey came back, it confirmed that 16 feet of the garage, essentially the one-car section, was in fact on my property. With this information, I approached the daughter and asked her parents to contact me. My goal was to resolve the issue peacefully, so I offered to sell them the garage and legally adjust the property line. That way they could keep the garage and I wouldn't have to deal with this situation again. They reached out and offered me $500 for the garage. To say I was insulted would be an understatement. I'd initially asked for $5,000, which I thought was fair given the value of the property and the garage space. They were furious with my counteroffer, but I wasn't willing to sell at such a low price. After all, the survey confirmed that the garage was on my land. So I decided to keep the garage. I've already started planning to build an interior wall to separate my section from theirs, and I'm going to use it for my own purposes. They might be upset, but they had their chance to work this out amicably, and they refused to negotiate in good faith. What's even more satisfying is that I have emails where they explicitly acknowledge that the one-car garage sits on my property. They never bothered to change the property lines before selling the house, so this situation is entirely on them. Update. Fast forward a few months, the neighbors weren't happy with my decision to keep the garage and tried to strong-arm me into selling it on their terms. They even hinted at taking legal action, thinking that would scare me into backing down. I wasn't worried, though. With the survey results and their own emails acknowledging the property boundaries, I had all the proof I needed. Then they actually did try to take the case to court, but it didn't end the way they hoped. In court, the judge ruled in my favor. They were furious, but there was nothing they could do, and I've since finished renovating it. It's now a perfect addition to my property, and I'm using it as an extra storage and workshop space. Lesson learned. Never assume you can bully someone into giving up what's legally theirs, especially when they've done their homework. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.